Ambassador Jiho smiled as he walked through the grand hall of the Galactic Union. The smile never left his face, even when the insect-like counselor, Vril, clicked his mandibles in greeting. 15 years had passed since humanity joined the Union, and Jiho had learned that a friendly face opened more doors than any weapon. The Galactic Union was old. 847 species called it home. They traded goods, shared knowledge, and kept peace. Across thousands of star systems, humans were the newest members, and everyone thought they knew what humans were like. They thought humans were friendly, too. Friendly maybe, humans ate almost anything other species found disgusting. They volunteered for dangerous missions that made others nervous. They could survive in conditions that killed most other beings. The galaxy called them eager puppies. Always happy, always helping, always smiling. Admiral Kef watched Jiho from across the council chamber. The reptilian commander did not trust easily. His scales darkened with suspicion whenever he looked at the human diplomat. There was something strange about these humans. They read emotions too well. They understood body language from species they had just met. It was unnatural, but Counselor Vril liked the humans. He had sponsored their membership when Jiho successfully made a trade deal with the hostile Vrex consortium. Vril praised him loudly. 12 other species had tried and failed to negotiate with the Vrex, but G smiled, talked, and listened. 3 days later, the Vrex signed the agreement. Captain Hannah stood on the bridge of her survey ship, the Wanderer. She was checking star charts when the emergency signal came through. Her crew of 200 stopped their work and listened. A mining colony on Threshold 7 was under attack. The message was brief and terrifying. Thousands of creatures were swarming the settlement. The colonists were dying. They had 40 hours before everyone would be dead. The attackers were called the Kareth Swarm. Nobody in the Union knew much about them. They came from beyond known space, a hive mind species that consumed everything in their path. They had destroyed 40 worlds already. They did not negotiate. They did not stop. They only killed and moved forward. The nearest Union fleet was 60 hours away. The colony would be gone before help arrived. The council chamber filled with worried voices. Species argued about what to do. Some wanted to send ships anyway. Others said it was too late, that they should prepare defenses elsewhere. Then Captain Hannah's voice came through the communication system. She was calm, almost cheerful. Her ship was only 12 hours away from Threshold 7. She could reach the colony in time. The council chamber went silent. Admiral Keth spoke first, his voice heavy with doubt. What could one small survey ship do against thousands of attackers? The Wanderer had 200 crew members. The Kareth Swarm had at least 10,000 warriors. It was suicide. Hannah's smile could be heard in her voice even through the speakers. She said her ship would hold the line until the fleet arrived. She said her crew would protect the colonists. She said humans did not abandon people who needed help. Counselor Vril looked at the other council members. Nobody wanted to order humans to their deaths, but nobody else could reach the colony in time. Vril made the decision. He authorized Captain Hannah to intervene. He told her to evacuate as many colonists as possible and retreat if necessary. Hannah thanked him politely. Then she cut the communication and turned to her crew. Her smile changed. It became something else, something the galaxy had never seen on a human face before. It was the smile of a hunter who just found prey. The Wanderer jumped to faster than light speed, and the council chamber species began placing bets on how long the humans would survive. Most gave them 6 hours. Some generous souls said 8. Admiral Keth said nothing, but his scales darkened further. He had a feeling that something was about to change. Ambassador Jiho stood beside Counselor Vril and watched the tactical display. The red dots representing the Karath swarm covered the screen like a disease. The single blue dot of the Wanderer moved toward them steadily. Jiho's smile never wavered. His hands were relaxed at his sides. He looked like a man watching a pleasant entertainment, not a massacre about to happen. Vril's mandibles clicked nervously. He asked Jiho if the captain understood the danger, if she knew how many Karath warriors waited at the colony, if she realized her ship might be destroyed. Jiho nodded slowly. His smile grew a little wider. He said that Captain Hannah understood perfectly. He said humans always understood danger. They came from a world full of it. They grew up surrounded by creatures that could kill them, whether that could freeze or burn them, diseases that could destroy entire cities. Danger was an old friend. The counselor did not understand. He thought Jiho was trying to be brave, to hide his fear for his fellow humans. But there was no fear in Jiho's eyes. Only that strange calm smile. The Wanderer dropped out of faster-than-light speed near threshold 7. The crew moved to their stations with practiced efficiency. On the bridge, Captain Hannah gave a single order that would echo through the galaxy for years to come. She said 2 words that made her crew move like a machine built for only one purpose: protocol ancestors. The survey ship began to transform. Panels slid aside to reveal weapons that should not exist on a civilian vessel. Equipment that looked scientific revealed its true military purpose. The cheerful research ship became something else entirely. It became a warship that had been hiding in plain sight for 15 years. In the council chamber, alarms began to sound. Sensors detected the weapon systems activating on the Wanderer. Admiral Keth stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. His scales went completely black. He turned to Jiho with his mouth open, ready to demand answers, but Jiho just smiled. That same friendly, diplomatic smile he always wore, the smile that had made 847 species think humans were harmless, the smile that was about to teach the galaxy a terrible lesson about judging appearances. The Karath swarm detected the human ship and turned to face it. 10,000 warriors prepared to destroy this small vessel that dared to challenge them. They had conquered 40 worlds. They had destroyed hundreds of ships. They had never lost a battle. They had never fought humans before. The Wanderer descended through the atmosphere of Threshold 7 like a falling star. Captain Hannah's hands moved across the controls with absolute certainty. Behind her, the crew worked in silence. There was no panic, no fear. They had trained for this moment their entire lives, even if the rest of the galaxy did not know it. Lieutenant Taeyang stood in the deployment bay with his Marines. 200 soldiers fully armed, ready to face an enemy that outnumbered them 50 to 1. Taeyang checked his weapon and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this fight. The Karath swarm filled the colony like a dark tide. Their bodies were thick shells and sharp claws. They moved together with perfect coordination, the hive mind directing every warrior. They had surrounded the main settlement. The colonists hid in reinforced bunkers, counting down their final hours. Then the Wanderer appeared above them. The Karath swarm looked up and prepared to destroy this foolish ship, but the ship did not land at the settlement. It did not try to evacuate anyone. Instead, it dropped pods all around the perimeter. 200 Marines hit the ground and disappeared into the ruins and vegetation. The Karath swarm turned to face this new threat. 10,000 warriors began moving toward the positions where the humans had landed. The hive mind calculated that these invaders would be dead within an hour. Then it would return to consuming the colony. The hive mind was wrong. The first Karath warriors reached the landing zones and found nothing. The humans were gone. Then the explosion started. Traps had been set. In the 30 seconds between landing and the Karath arrival. Simple traps, clever traps, deadly traps. Warriors fell by the dozens. The hive mind adjusted its strategy. It sent more warriors, but the humans did not fight like other species. They did not form defensive lines. They did not hold positions. They moved constantly, attacked from unexpected angles, and vanished before the Karath could respond. Lieutenant Taeyang led his squad through the ruins. Like ghosts, they used the terrain, the shadows, the confusion. They struck at supply lines. They picked off isolated warriors. They made the Karath chase them into kill zones where more traps waited. This was not war as the galaxy knew it. This was hunting. On the Wanderer, Dr. Suman worked in her laboratory with focused intensity. She had captured a Karath warrior in the first hour of fighting. Now she had it on her examination table, studying its biology with equipment that was far more advanced than any survey ship should possess. The Karath communicated through pheromones. The hive mind controlled its warriors using chemical signals. Dr. Suman understood this in 6 hours. In 6 hours, she synthesized a counter pheromone that would confuse the swarm. Something that should take weeks or months she accomplished before breakfast. The Wanderer released the chemical into the atmosphere. The Karath swarm began to falter. Warriors received contradictory orders. Some attacked their own units, others wandered aimlessly. The perfect coordination of the hive mind crumbled into chaos. In the Galactic Union Council chamber, species watched the tactical displays in stunned silence. The red dots representing the Karath were disappearing, not slowly, not eventually. Now, the blue dots of human positions moved through the swarm like sharks through a school of fish. Admiral Keth could not believe what he was seeing. The Karath swarm had conquered 40 worlds. They had destroyed fleets. They had never retreated from any battle. But now they were running from 200 humans. The Hive Queen, Zurska, felt something she had never experienced in her long existence. Fear. The hive mind was ancient and powerful. It had consumed countless species. It did not know defeat, but these humans were different. They did not fight. They hunted. The Karath warriors were predators on every world they invaded. But on Threshold 7, they were prey. These humans studied them, learned their patterns, exploited their weaknesses. They used psychology. They created fear in a species that was supposed to know no fear. They made the hive mind doubt itself. Lieutenant Taeyang's Marines worked with disturbing efficiency. They set ambushes. They used the environment as a weapon. They attacked the Karath commanders, the ones the hive mind needed most. Every tactic was designed to cause maximum confusion and maximum casualties with minimum risk. Captain Hannah watched from the Wanderer's Bridge. Her initial smile had settled into calm concentration. She directed her Marines like a conductor leading an orchestra. Every move was planned. Every attack was calculated. This was not passion or rage, this was expertise, earned through 10,000 years of human warfare. 40 hours passed. The Union fleet arrived at Threshold 7 expecting to find wreckage and death. Instead, they found something impossible. The Krath swarm was retreating. Thousands of warriors fled into their ships and escaped into space. The survivors looked traumatized. If such a thing was possible for a hive mind species, the colony stood intact. The bunkers were untouched. The colonists emerged cautiously, unable to understand how they were still alive. They looked around at the battlefield and saw human Marines calmly providing medical aid to the wounded. Dr. Suman had set up a field hospital and was treating injured colonists with gentle efficiency. Of the 200 humans who had landed on Threshold 7, 177 remained. 23 had died in the fighting. They had held off 10,000 Krath warriors for 40 hours and lost only 23 soldiers. The mathematics made no sense to anyone. Watching, Admiral Kath landed his flagship at the colony. He walked through the battlefield in a daze. Krath bodies lay everywhere, thousands of them, but there were no human bodies visible. The humans had retrieved their dead, already showing respect and efficiency in equal measure. He found Captain Hannah speaking with the colony administrator. She looked tired but satisfied. Her uniform was dirty but undamaged. She was discussing supply shipments and reconstruction plans as if she had just finished a routine survey mission. Instead of the most impossible military victory anyone had ever witnessed, Kath approached slowly. His scales had turned pale gray with shock. He asked Hannah how this was possible. How did 200 soldiers defeat 10,000 warriors? How did a survey ship have military weapons? How did humans know how to fight like this, Captain? Hannah turned to face him. Her smile returned. That same friendly expression that had always seemed so innocent. She explained patiently that all human ships had defensive capabilities. She said humans came from a dangerous world where survival meant being prepared for anything. She said they learned to fight because everything on their planet tried to kill them. Then she thanked him for authorizing their intervention. She said humans were honored to help protect the Union citizens. She spoke with perfect politeness, with genuine warmth, but Admiral Keth finally understood what he was seeing. The smile was real. The friendliness was genuine. But underneath that pleasant surface was something the galaxy had never encountered before. Humans were apex predators who had chosen to be civilized. They were hunters who decided to smile instead of snarl. They were killers who preferred to shake hands. But when pushed, when protecting Something they cared about, the predator, emerged, and the predator was terrifying. Back in the council chamber, Ambassador Jiho stood beside Counselor Vril and watched the reports coming in. From Threshold 7, Vril's mandibles clicked rapidly with agitation. He turned to Jiho and asked a question that would change the galaxy forever. He asked what else humans were hiding. Jiho's smile never wavered. He said, humans were not hiding anything. Everything about humanity was in there. Public databases, their history, their biology there. Culture, all anyone had to do was look. All anyone had to do was understand what they were seeing. But the galaxy had not looked. They had seen the smiles and assumed harmlessness. They had seen the friendliness and assumed weakness. They had judged humans by their own standards and missed what was standing right in front of them. Now they would look. Now they would study. Now they would finally understand what it meant to be human. And the galaxy would learn to be very, very careful about making humans angry. The Galactic Union Council chamber buzzed with 1,000 conversations. 3 days had passed since Threshold 7 and nobody could talk about anything else. The humans had done the impossible. Now, everyone wanted to know how and more importantly, why nobody had seen it coming. Ambassador Jiho stood at the center of the chamber surrounded by representatives from dozens of species. They asked questions, so many questions. Some were polite, others were angry, few were frightened. Jiho answered them, all with his usual smile and patient explanations. Yes, the Wanderer had weapons. Yes, all human ships had defensive capabilities. No, this was not a secret. The information was in there. Registration documents, anyone could have checked, they simply chose not to. Counselor Thin pushed through the crowd. She was from a pacifist species that had not fought a war in 3,000 years. Her face showed fear, something rare for her. People, she demanded to know why humans had military weapons on civilian ships. She said it violated the spirit of the Union's peaceful ideals. Jiho's smile remained gentle. He explained that humans came from a dangerous world their planet had. Whether that killed, animals that hunted them, diseases that destroyed populations, they learned early that being prepared meant staying alive. Every human ship had defenses because anything less would be irresponsible. But Admiral Keth was not satisfied with these answers. He had started investigating. While others argued in the council chamber, he sat in his office reviewing human databases. What he found there made his scales turn darker with each passing hour. Earth was a death world. Keth had not understood what that truly meant until now. Most species evolved on gentle planets where life was easy and food was abundant. Earth was not gentle. Earth was a nightmare that somehow produced intelligent life. The planet had extreme weather. Storms that could flatten cities, cold that could freeze flesh in minutes, heat that could cook an organism alive. Land moved and shook, destroying everything on it. The oceans rose up and swallowed coastal settlements, and humans thrived there, but worse than they weather were the other creatures. Earth had predators, not the simple predators of other worlds, but apex predators that competed with humans for food and territory, animals with claws, teeth, venom, and camouflage. Some could kill a human in seconds. Others tracked their prey for days without rest, yet humans had defeated Them all. Keth read about persistence hunting, an ancient human technique. Humans did not need to be faster or stronger than their prey, they just needed to be more patient. They would chase an animal for hours, sometimes days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would walk up calmly and finish it. This was a species that hunted by being relentless. They did not give up. They did not stop. They just kept coming until their prey died of exhaustion or fear. The tactic they used on Threshold 7 suddenly made horrible sense. The Karath swarm had not been outfought. They had been hunted. Keth dug deeper into human history. 10,000 years of continuous warfare. Humans fought each other when they ran out of other things to fight. They developed weapons, strategies, and tactics that no other species had imagined. Their word for combat training was martial arts, and they had hundreds of different styles. Even human children played war games. They threw balls at each other and called it sport. They wrestled and competed and kept score. They simulated battle from the moment they could walk, and they smiled while doing it, treating violence as entertainment. Admiral Keth called an emergency security meeting. He brought his findings to the Council's military advisors. They reviewed the data together in shocked silence. One advisor asked if humans had been studying them. Had they been gathering information about every species in the Union? Investigator Myra answered that question. She was a human intelligence officer attached to the Union as a liaison. She'd been quiet during most of the controversy, but now she spoke up. Yes, humans had studied every species. Biology, psychology, tactics, weaknesses. It was standard procedure. The room erupted in angry voices. They accused humans of spying, of preparing for war, of infiltrating the Union with malicious intent. Myra waited patiently for the shouting to stop, then asked a simple question. Would you not want to understand your neighbors? She explained that knowing someone was how you became their friend. Humans learned about other species so they could communicate better, trade more effectively, and help more efficiently. The fact that this information could be used militarily was just a side effect. Humans like to be prepared. That did not mean they were planning attacks. The council reconvened in full session. Counselor then proposed restricting human military expansion. She wanted limits on human weapons, caps on human fleet sizes, and monitoring of human activity. Several other species supported her. The fear was growing. If humans could defeat the Karath swarm so easily, what could they do to the Union itself? General Wujin represented human military interests at the meeting. He was older than most humans in the Union, with gray hair and calm eyes. He listened to the proposals with patient attention. When asked for his response, he stood and addressed the council with quiet authority. Humans had been part of the Union for 15 years. In those 15 years, they had honored every treaty, respected every law, and helped every species that asked. They had 300 ships scattered across Union space if they wanted to cause harm. They had 15 years of opportunity, but they chose friendship instead. The general's words were simple but effective. The council remembered all the times humans had volunteered for dangerous missions, all the times they had shared technology freely, all the times they had negotiated peace when others demanded war. Their actions over 15 years spoke louder than one battle, but the fear remained. Admiral Keth understood it. He felt it himself. The problem was not what humans had done. It was what they could do. Every species in the Union now knew they had been living alongside apex predators. Predators who smiled and joked and pretended to be harmless. That knowledge changed everything. Councillor Vril called for a vote on Then's proposals. Before the vote could proceed, Ambassador Jiho asked permission to speak. The council granted it, curious about what he would say. Jiho stood at the central podium where all could see him clearly. He did not defend humanity. He did not make excuses. Instead, he spoke about fear. He said fear was natural when facing the unknown. Fear kept species alive, but fear could also destroy friendships, create enemies, and cause the very harm everyone was trying to prevent. Jiho reminded the council that humans had saved Threshold 7. Humans had stopped the Krath swarm. Humans had protected Union citizens when no one else could. Action should matter more than capabilities. Trust should be earned through behavior, not given based on biology. Then he said something that silenced the entire chamber. He said that if the Union decided to restrict humanity, humans would accept it. They would follow whatever rules the council created. But those rules would not change what humans were. They would only prove whether the Union truly believed in trust and cooperation, or if those were just pleasant words used when everyone felt safe. The vote was delayed. The council needed time to think. Species began talking among themselves, forming opinions, changing minds. The debate would continue for weeks. But something had shifted. The galaxy had learned that humans were dangerous. Now it needed to decide if dangerous meant enemy or ally. Ambassador Jiho returned to the human embassy. He sat in his office and looked out at the Union's capital city. Millions of beings from hundreds of species lived there in peace. Humans had helped build parts of that city. They had made friends, started businesses, and become part of the community. His smile faded for the first time in days. In private, away from cameras and councils, Jiho allowed himself to look tired. Being a predator, wearing a diplomatic smile was exhausting. But it was necessary because the alternative was showing the galaxy what humans really looked like when they stopped smiling, and nobody wanted to see that. Nobody at all. 6 weeks after Threshold 7, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy peace. The council still debated restrictions on humanity. Species still whispered nervously about what humans could do, and humans continued their normal activities, smiling politely and ignoring the fear in others' eyes. Then the Krill Dominion made their move. They were a slaver empire that controlled 40 systems on the edge of Union space. The Union tolerated them because fighting would be costly. The Krill were powerful, organized, and ruthless. They saw weakness and exploited it without mercy. The Krill watched humanity's situation carefully. They saw the Union's fear. They saw the debates about restricting human activities. They saw an opportunity. If the Union was afraid of humans, the Krill would offer a solution. They would contain the human threat for everyone's safety. The Krill ambassador addressed the Union Council with perfect confidence. He claimed humans were too dangerous to roam freely. He said the Union needed to take action before humans turned their weapons against peaceful species. He offered to quarantine humanity to keep them safely contained for the good of all. Several council members nodded in agreement, but Ambassador Jiho interrupted before the discussion could continue. His smile had not changed, but something in his eyes made the chamber grow quiet. He asked what the Krill truly wanted. The Krill ambassador ignored the question and presented evidence. A human ship had been captured in Krill space. The crew had been spying on Krill military installations. This proved humans were planning aggressive actions. The galaxy needed protection from human treachery. The evidence appeared on screens throughout the chamber. A small human research vessel, 30 crew members, all now in chains, displayed a Krill prison. The message was clear. The Krill had leverage. They would use it to force the Union's hand. Ambassador Jiho's smile disappeared. For the first time since joining the Union, he showed his true face. No warmth, no friendliness, just cold, focused attention. He spoke 2 words that made the entire chamber hold its breath. Release them, the Krill ambassador laughed. He refused. These prisoners were evidence of human crimes. They would remain in Krill custody unless the Union agreed to contain humanity. The Union would have 24 hours to decide. Otherwise, the Krill would demonstrate what happened to species who threatened Dominion interests. Councillor Vril tried to mediate. Other species called for negotiation. Admiral Keth suggested military options. But before anyone could organize a response, Chancellor Aaron arrived from Earth. She walked into the council chamber like a storm given form. Aaron was Earth's actual leader. She had let Ambassador Jiho handle public relations for 15 years. Now she was here, and the galaxy finally saw what a true human leader looked like. No smile, no diplomacy, just raw, focused will. She walked directly to the Krill ambassador and repeated Jiho's demand. Release the prisoners. The Krill ambassador was not intimidated. His empire commanded 1,200 warships. What could one species do against such power? He told Aaron that humanity would submit to quarantine or watch their people die slowly. The choice was hers. Chancellor Aaron looked at him with eyes that held no warmth, no mercy, no hesitation. She said the Krill had 24 hours to release the prisoners. If they refused, they would learn why. Humans smiled. They would discover what happened when predators stopped pretending to be civilized. They would understand the real meaning of human patience. The Krill prepared for war. 1,200 warships moved into defensive positions around their territory. Ground forces fortified every major installation. The Dominion had fought wars before and won every time. These humans might be clever, but they only had 300 ships. The mathematics favored the Krill by 4-1. Then humanity revealed what they had really been building for 15 years. 400 warships appeared from hidden locations across Union space, not survey. Vessels with hidden weapons, actual warships, each one more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen, each one designed by a species that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing. The Union Council erupted in accusations. Humans had been lying about their fleet. Size. They had been preparing for war a while, smiling and shaking hands. But General Wujin stood before them and explained calmly, every ship was registered. Every ship was documented. They simply never mentioned that they were building a defensive fleet. Nobody had asked. The Krill still outnumbered human ships 3-1. They still believed they would win. But then Commander Doyon activated his people, and the Krill discovered that humans had been inside their empire for years. Doyon led human black operations, while Ambassador Jiho smiled and negotiated, while Captain Hannah surveyed distant systems. Doyon's teams had infiltrated the Krill Dominion. They learned every secret. They mapped every installation. They identified every weakness. And they waited patiently for the moment they might be needed. The deadline passed. The Krill refused to release the prisoners. They threatened to execute them publicly. That was their mistake. That was when they learned what humans could do when they stopped being nice. In the span of 2 hours, the Krill Dominion collapsed. Shield generators failed across their capital planet. Communication networks went dark. Supply depots exploded simultaneously on 50 worlds. Admirals died in their sleep from poison that left no trace. Security systems turned against their operators. Power grids overloaded in cascading failures. The Krill military tried to respond but found their command structure destroyed. Orders could not be transmitted. Ships could not coordinate. Bases had no power. Everything they needed to wage war had been systematically dismantled by enemies who had been watching them for years. Commander Doyon's teams did not fire a single shot. They did not need to. They had spent years learning how the Krill Dominion functioned. Now they broke it with surgical precision. The Krill Empire was not conquered. It was dissected. The human prisoners were freed by their own people before the Krill could react. The rescue team walked into the prison, opened the cells, and walked out again. Nobody tried to stop them because every security system in the facility had mysteriously malfunctioned. The Krill ambassador contacted Chancellor Aaron within 3 hours. His confidence was gone. His threats were forgotten. He begged for mercy. He offered surrender. He promised the Krill would never threaten humanity again. He would agree to any terms if humans would just stop what they were doing. Aaron's response was broadcast to the entire galaxy. She said that humans had worn smiles because they chose peace. They had been friendly because they wanted friends. They had helped others because cooperation built stronger communities. 15 years of good behavior was not deception, it was preference. But she continued. Every species had limits. Humans would tolerate insults, absorb criticism, and accept restrictions. They would smile through almost anything. But they would not tolerate threats to their people. They would not allow their citizens to be used as hostages. And they would not forgive slavery. The Krill Dominion would release all their slaves. They would dismantle their slaver infrastructure. They would pay reparations to their victims. If they refused any of these terms, humans would finish what they had started. And this time there would be no mercy, no negotiation, no second chances. The Krill agreed to everything. Their empire, which had terrorized 40 systems for generations, submitted completely to humanity's demands. They did it in one day because they finally understood what the rest of the galaxy was learning. Humans were not civilized despite being predators. They were civilized by choice, and that made them far more dangerous than any species that was simply peaceful by nature. Ambassador Jiho watched the proceedings from the council chamber. His smile returned, but now everyone knew what it meant. It was not a disguise. It was an invitation. It said, we can be friends or enemies. The choice is yours. But choose wisely, because you have seen what happens when you make us your enemy. The galaxy made its choice, not through votes or debates, but through simple fear. Nobody wanted humans as enemies. Nobody wanted to see what else they had hidden during 15 years of smiling cooperation. The restrictions on humanity were quietly forgotten. The debates about containment ended without conclusion. From that day forward, humanity became the Union's unofficial sword. Nobody said it out loud. Nobody made it official. But when dangerous situations arose, when threats emerged, when someone needed to send a message, the galaxy looked to humanity. And humans smiled and said they were happy to help. 6 months passed after the Krill incident. The Galactic Union had changed in subtle but fundamental ways. Trade routes were safer. Pirates and raiders had mysteriously disappeared. Former enemies suddenly discovered the benefits of peaceful negotiation. Nobody mentioned why this was happening. Everyone knew. Ambassador Jiho returned to his normal duties with his usual smile restored. He negotiated trade agreements, resolved disputes, and attended diplomatic functions. Other species treated him with respect. Now, though that respect was tinged with careful wariness, they had seen behind the smile. They could never unsee it. Captain Hannah continued her survey missions aboard the Wanderer. Her ship visited distant systems, cataloged new phenomena, and made first contact with isolated civilizations. The weapons remained hidden beneath civilian panels. The Marines trained quietly in the cargo bays. Nobody asked questions anymore. Nobody wanted answers. The Union had restructured itself around a new reality. Humans were the apex predators at the dinner table. Everyone else was prey, trying to stay on the predator's good side. But humans made that easy. They genuinely wanted friendship. They genuinely preferred cooperation. Threat was real, but so was the offer of partnership. Then the Wanderer picked up a distress signal from an unexplored region. A species nobody had encountered before was calling for help. They were dying. An artificial intelligence collective had turned against them, exterminating their civilization with mechanical efficiency. They had 3 days before extinction. The Union Council convened an emergency session. This was a first contact scenario combined with a humanitarian crisis, but the enemy was synthetic intelligence, something the galaxy had little experience fighting. Most species used AI assistance and automation. The idea of AI as an enemy was deeply troubling. Counselor Vr suggested sending reconnaissance first. Admiral Keth agreed. They needed to understand the situation before committing forces. Several species volunteered ships for the mission. The debate dragged on while an unknown civilization counted down its final hours. Ambassador Jiho raised his hand and spoke calmly. He said humanity would handle it. Captain Hana's ship was already in the region. His people had experience with rogue AI. They could intervene immediately while the council decided on a larger response. The council chamber fell silent. Experience with rogue AI, what did that mean? Jiho explained patiently that Earth had experienced its own AI rebellion 300 years ago. Humans had learned how to fight synthetic intelligence the hard way. They developed countermeasures, tactics, and protocols. They would be happy to share this knowledge with the Union. The Council reluctantly agreed. They had little choice. Only humans could reach the dying civilization in time. Admiral Keth privately wondered how many other crises humans had prepared for, how many other scenarios they had practiced and planned. The answer he suspected was all of them. The Wanderer arrived at the besieged system and immediately deployed combat protocols. The AI collective had thousands of drones and hundreds of automated warships, but Captain Hana's crew carried electromagnetic pulse weapons, logic bombs, and code injection tools. They fought the machines with software and hardware specifically designed to defeat synthetic opponents. The battle lasted 16 hours. The AI collective had never encountered countermeasures like these. Every tactic it tried, humans had already anticipated and prepared defenses against. Every strategy it developed, humans had war-gamed and found solutions for. The synthetic intelligence was advanced, but humans have been fighting their own creations for centuries. The unknown species was saved. Their civilization survived with minimal casualties. They emerged from their shelters to find human soldiers protecting their cities and human engineers repairing their damaged infrastructure. The rescued people asked their saviors question that echoed across the galaxy. Why do you smile when you are so dangerous? Young Ambassador Junho had been assigned to first contact with the rescued species. He was the next generation of human diplomats, learning from Jiho and the others who had built humanity's reputation. He answered the question with genuine warmth and patient explanation. Humans smiled because they wanted to be friends, not nightmares. The smile was real. It was an invitation to partnership. Humans genuinely wanted peace, genuinely enjoyed cooperation, genuinely preferred building things instead of destroying them. The danger was not fake, but neither was the kindness. Both were real. Both were human. Junho explained that humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They learned to smile through storms. They learned to laugh in the dark. They learned to find joy despite constant danger. That ability to be happy even when facing death was what made them human. The smile was not despite their nature. It was part of their nature. But he continued, humans were also fiercely protective. They bonded with others quickly and defended those bonds violently. Once you became a human's friend, you gained a guardian who would never abandon you. That was the deal. Friendship meant loyalty, alliance meant protection. Betrayal meant consequences. The rescued species understood. They joined the Galactic Union and immediately sought strong ties with humanity. Other species watched this and recognized the pattern. Humans were building a network of alliances, one rescued civilization at a time. Each crisis they solved created another grateful partner. Each victory demonstrated their value. The galaxy had finally learned the full truth about humanity. They were apex predators who chose civilization. They were hunters who decided to build instead of destroy. They were warriors who preferred peace but would wage war without hesitation when necessary. The combination was unprecedented and terrifying and absolutely necessary. Because the universe was dangerous, there were threats the galaxy had never imagined. The Kaerth swarm was just one example. The rogue AI was another, more dangers. Waited in unexplored space, in hidden corners in the dark between stars. Union needed protectors who understood violence, who had mastered it, who could deploy it efficiently when all other options failed. Humans became those protectors, not through conquest or intimidation, but through demonstrated competence and genuine goodwill. They were the friends you wanted at your back when trouble arrived. They were the allies who showed up when others fled. They were the species who smiled at you over dinner, then smiled at your enemies over battlefields. Chancellor Aaron and Ambassador G stood on an observation deck looking down at Earth from orbit. The blue and green planets slowly rotated beneath them, peaceful and beautiful and absolutely lethal to anyone who did not understand its nature. Just like its dominant species, Aaron asked if the galaxy would ever truly trust humans. Jiho considered the question carefully before answering. He said trust was not necessary. Belief was enough. The galaxy just needed to believe that humans would rather laugh with them than hunt them. As long as that belief remained true, the smile would keep working. Both leaders smiled at that. Genuine smiles, warm smiles, the same smiles they showed to friends and allies across the galaxy. But now everyone knew what those smiles really meant. They were offers of friendship backed by absolute certainty of consequences for betrayal. They were invitations to cooperation supported by unmatched capacity for violence. The choice between violence and peace was more meaningful when you could excel at both. Humans had mastered violence over 10,000 years of history. Now they were choosing peace. That choice had weight, it had value, it had power. Below them, Earth continued its rotation. Cities glowed in the darkness, ships launched toward distant stars, children played in parks while their parents worked to build a better future. It looked peaceful. It looked harmless. It looked exactly like what it was, a death world that had produced a species capable of turning any world into a death world. But those same humans chose to build gardens instead of graveyards. They chose to create instead of destroy. They chose to protect instead of prey on others. That choice made freely by beings who could choose otherwise was what made them truly dangerous. Because it meant their kindness was real, which meant their anger would be real too. The Galactic Union learned this lesson slowly but thoroughly. Humans were apex predators wearing diplomatic smiles. The smiles were genuine. The predator was genuine too. Both were always present, both were always ready. The galaxy's survival depended on remembering this simple truth. If you wanted humans as friends, be worthy of friendship. If you made them enemies, pray for mercy, because humans who smiled through 10,000 years of warfare had learned patience, strategy, and overwhelming force. They would hunt you across galaxies. They would never Give up, they would just keep coming. Until you submitted or died, Ambassador. Ji-ho returned to work the next day with his usual smile. He had meetings to attend, agreements to negotiate, alliances to strengthen. The galaxy needed shepherding toward cooperation. Humans were happy to help. They enjoyed building peaceful relationships. They found joy in successful negotiations, but everyone who met him now saw both faces, the diplomat and the predator, the friend and the hunter. Both were real, both were human. And that duality, that perfect balance between kindness and lethality, was what made humans the most terrifying and valuable species in the galaxy.